Welcome to all our listeners to this podcast that is coming to you from the University of Transdisciplinary Health Sciences and Technology here in Bangalore. With me today are two very interesting guests. Both of them are biologists. Dr. Megha, who has a PhD from Stony Brook. I will let her tell you more about her research in a minute. And Dr. Vishnu, who also has a PhD in cell and molecular biology. So let's just, and my name is Leena Vadia. I am a physicist by training, but I work in education. So I'm serving as Dean of Education at the university, and it's a pleasure to bring you this podcast today. So let's begin. I'll invite Megha to introduce yourself and tell us a bit about the work you do at the university, the research and your interests and so on.
Thank you, Leena, for this opportunity. My entry to transdisciplinary sciences was extremely serendipitous. I have trained all my life in laboratory science, starting with Stony Brook, moving to Seattle, coming back to India, working at NCBS, and doing small stints all over the globe. In this entire journey, what I knew was I wanted to do science, and I was very excited about getting it out to as many people as possible. But somewhere along, I realized that laboratory science, to me at least, felt limiting because of the long gestation time between an idea, making sure it is correct, and then translating it. I wanted to be closer to public and community. And so I wanted to make a change from laboratory science to public health. But here I was with a degree in biochemistry, wanting to do public health nutrition. And this is a transition that not many places would support, which is why TDU came in as a blessing into my life. When I walked in, I was struck very much by its commitment to social impact, which closely aligned to what I wanted to do, and the freedom it offered to chart your own path in this particular domain. So I came in here with a project from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation to develop a fly model of malnutrition. And from then on, grew in public health nutrition. Another interesting thing happened along the way, which is that TDU has a strong belief in local health traditions, their documentations and practices. I was very initially reluctant to even consider that these might be valuable sources of information. And I'm happy to say I was completely wrong. And today I am a strong advocate for receiving knowledge, no matter the source, but of course, putting on the blinkers and making sure that, the glasses to make sure that this knowledge is something that can be useful, tested, measurable. And by and large, I think finally realizing the PH part of my degree, which is the philosophy that unfortunately we lose along the way when we do science. So I will stop with that as my introduction.
Thank you, Megha. That was beautiful and inspiring for students, hopefully. Yeah. So over to you, Dr. Vishnu. I remember that you joined TDU in sometime in 2014, maybe soon after it was legislated. So you are among the earliest people at TDU. So please tell us a little bit also about your evolution and the evolution of the university alongside you.
Yeah, thank you, Leena, for this opportunity. So it's very interesting to share how I reached TDU. As you rightly said, I have a PhD in cell and molecular biology, and if I look back before, even during my school days itself, I'm coming from a place where it is sort of surrounded by Ayurveda physicians and traditional medicine people. So Ayurveda kind of a field or that knowledge system was very close to my heart. And but I happened to be graduate in microbiology and biotechnology, but later my PhD was in the area of medicinal plants and how that is how we can study medicinal plants in the context of diabetes, etc. But later, we started realizing that the way we are studying medicinal plants is not really the way how it is used in this traditional medicine. Because the reason why we opted for studying medicinal plants because of that, close relationship with this Ayurveda kind of system. So later, then I was in South Korea for some time, and then when I was working again, I started after my PhD. Again, I started that interest towards doing something related to Ayurveda, and that was the time I came to know that this university in Bangalore called as Transdisciplinary University. That word was very very new for me at that time. So it became a university. So I thought that yeah, this is a good place where I can do some academic research as well as a lot of teaching kind of opportunities, and all those things will come up. And it's a new university. So that's how I applied to this university, because I knew that this university has a lot of emphasis on Ayurveda-based research, but uh, it was something called as transdisciplinary, or the University of Transdisciplinary Health Science and Technology. I was not at all knowing what is that. So after joining here, as Megha said, it gave us a very different perspective of what we learned in biology. Again, I'm borrowing that phrase what Megha used, the PH in our degree, that PhD degree. I mean that part of that degree was really we found that importance of that word in this place, the philosophy of biology, the philosophy of Ayurveda. And as you said, I am one among the early people joined in TDU. Of course, as the parent institution has its long history, but probably one of the first faculties joined in TDU from the outside community. So here again, I'm continuing my research in diabetes, glucose, and lipid metabolism, but with a very strong interface between the Ayurveda philosophy of understanding this disease, as well as the modern biology philosophy of understanding this disease. One is very reductionist in nature, and the other one is much more systemic and holistic, and we are trying to integrate. So that transdisciplinary perspective for us is very very encouraging, very very interesting, and very very thrilling as well. So we are continuing there.
Thank you very much for that. Both of you referred to the word transdisciplinary, but I'd like to explore that a bit more in the context of your specific research. Vishnu, you mentioned that you're doing diabetes. And so can you give us some examples of where and how Ayurveda, knowledge of Ayurveda and its principles are helping you in doing your diabetes research?
Yes, I can. It's very important question, because first of all, let me say that the transdisciplinary is a very broad and unique term, and one can actually understand this terminology from different perspective, different context. You can explain this word, but I'm not going into that. When it comes to diabetes, I would like to narrate it in this way. Let us see the current understanding of diabetes. As many of us know, it is hyperglycemia. That is excess amount of glucose in blood, or we all know that lack of insulin, or sometimes we say that insulin is not doing its job properly, etc. These are all almost everybody understand all these things, because blood test and all those things are quite common. Now, let us look at this condition from a slightly different perspective. And also, we all know that Ayurveda physicians or Ayurveda system can treat these conditions, and many people resort to Ayurveda at one or the other stages of diabetes, for whatever may be the reason. Now, from the perspective of biology, if I look at this, we all know that the word glucose or insulin, or that concept, is not there in Ayurveda, because Ayurveda is not understanding this disease from that perspective, or that sort of a chemistry understanding is not there in Ayurveda. Then the question is how Ayurveda treat this symptoms, whatever that we see when you have when your blood glucose level increases or when insulin is not producing. So there must be a way to understand this from a different functional perspective. So Ayurveda follow that perspective, which is more on emphasizing on how the digestion is working, on how the digestion is altered, how the tissue functions are altered, etc., etc. So now we have two different, entirely different perspectives for the same sort of biological phenomenon what you are experiencing.
Mhm.
So this one can actually integrate through this transdisciplinary perspective. So you need to come up with you need to draw a middle line between the understanding of Ayurveda and the modern biology. So that is what we are trying to explore in our research and in our entire activities in TDU. That's just one example.
Thank you, Vishnu. So coming to you, Megha, I mean, when we speak about the three of us work at TDU. So when we speak about transdisciplinary, at the back of our mind, the top level transdisciplinarity we are referring to is the use of these Indian knowledge systems represented by Ayurveda when marrying it with modern biology. But I'd like you to expand on that a little bit more, and especially in the context of the research that you do.
So what I'd like to do, Lena, is to take some examples of projects that we are doing in the lab and how a transdisciplinary perspective has changed the way we are working on these problems.
Mm-hmm.
The big idea that we want to pursue in our lab is that we can tackle malnutrition using traditional food knowledge. So that's our big game, right? And we have divided that into small problem sets involving different actors. So at one end, we do biology of the gut, because the gut is where food is absorbed.
Mm-hmm.
On another scale, we are working with humans in clinical trials and looking at cancer patients who experience malnutrition, right? And the third project I want to talk about is to do with the community.
Mm-hmm.
So let me start from the biology of the gut, right? Now, in general public health settings, when an individual experiences malnourishment, typically when we want to address it, you would provide nutrients and foods of a certain macronutrient, micronutrient composition. There'll be foods and they will be chemically defined in the sense of the amount of calories they provide, the amount of proteins, lipids, and carbohydrates, right? But what we know intuitively and what Ayurveda says also is that when a tissue or a organ is depleted, then to bring it back to its normal functioning status, you can't simply provide nourishment. You have to prepare the system.
Mm-hmm.
And you prepare the system by providing certain herbs and certain regimens, which will allow you to maximally absorb the nourishment from whatever food you provide, right?
Mhm.
And so we are using the Drosophila system, where we are saying, okay, that this fly is malnourished. It has inflammation issues, it has behavioral issues, it has metabolic issues. Now, if I look at the introduction of herbs, and in our lab we did this with amla or the Indian gooseberry, we find that the introduction of this gooseberry, a very small percentage, dramatically alters how this organism and the organ is behaving, right? And this is very surprising to us, because here we have not done an intervention wherein we have provided a full suite of nutrients that would be required to meet malnourishment. We have just provided a small adjuvant. How can this small adjuvant have such a big impact? That is a mechanistic question that we're still sort of following. But I would not have thought that something small can have such a big impact in terms of behavioral, physiological outputs, right? Second, coming to our cancer project, right? So in cancer malnutrition and in cancer in general, the body is depleted, and dietetic advice usually requires the consumption of higher amounts of protein. A typical individual will have to take between 0.7 to 0.8 grams per kg, whereas a cancer patient has to do 1.1 to 1.2 grams. So that's a big change for them in their diet. And especially if you are vegetarian, it is very difficult to meet that kind of requirement, because that would mean eating, 40 grams of paneer for 3 times a day, which is not a palatable solution. The market solution to this problem is to provide protein supplements, right? So you get whey powders and soy powders, etc. Now, the issue is that of two kinds. One is affordability, and the second is biology. Let's look at the biology. Individuals normally feel very bloated and are unable to digest the foods that are present in these supplements. The second is affordability. Many of these supplements are highly priced, and if you want a good quality supplement, it is expensive. Cancer patients usually have to take these for long periods of time, so it's not exactly socially relevant in the terms of public health if you want it for everyone to consume. Where is the Ayurveda perspective here? Number one, Ayurveda says these people are having a low Agni. They cannot digest things easily. So if you give something like paneer, which is very difficult to digest, in terms of chemistry, they are meeting protein requirements. But in terms of biology and physiology, the question, they will not even be able to absorb that protein, right? So Ayurveda suggests, why don't you give them light but nourishing foods, right? So one example is moong dal, and we are now developing a supplement in the lab, which is a recipe taken from the classical texts, which involves moong dal, trikatu, and salt, to see if in their existing meals we can introduce this as a supplement. And then, like I said, based on our amla study, we know that small changes can make a big impact. We now want to look if this is possible in cancer patients as well. The second example I will take here is that of diets itself, the paneer example that I gave you. So we have been working with a dietitian and our sister hospital. This is another advantage of the TDU ecosystem, that we have a hospital right across from us to work with. And there we have been part of an observational study looking at cancer patients and what they eat. And we have been able to suggest some dietary modifications that have taken traditional knowledge as the base for modification. Not just paneer replaced with moong dal or mushrooms, but also how and what to eat and when to eat during the day. There are a couple of things that are coming out of this project. One thing I will mention for listeners is protein supplements. People might still want to take them. In our study, we are finding that instead of milk, if people replace and have it with buttermilk, which in Ayurveda has very light but nourishing properties, they find that their bloating is less. So these are small interventions which we think can have major public health impact. Right? The last study I will talk about, work in our lab, is to do with the community. They're stakeholders, right? What I told you about coming to this university and working with people, right? So the knowledge that communities hold in terms of nutrition, in terms of what is good, what is bad, when it should be eaten, how it should be eaten, how it should be processed. This is extremely high in India. I mean, it changes every 100 kilometers. So we have a Ministry of Ayush project from called the Traditional Foods of Karnataka. And here we are finding that community members have this information. They may not really appreciate what its nutritional perspectives are. And of course, some of them may not. They might have the traditional understanding of that dish, but perhaps the Ayurvedic understanding can help them even further appreciate that dish. By providing a nutritional and an Ayurvedic perspective, we are documenting these recipes. We are going to put them online because we want people to use them, try them out in their own kitchens. And we think that video is a very powerful tool for public health communication. So we think that this is, a very interesting project that Ayush has very boldly funded for us. And we have set up now the systems and the processes to collect this information, document them, and we don't want them stuck in a library. We want them out there, consumed by people, because it is a project of the people, by the people, for the people. So very excited that in our lab, we are able to go right from, microscope scale to community and public scale.
That's amazing, and it's utterly fascinating, especially for someone with a physics background like me. I don't have the know-how, but you have both put it very, very beautifully. Megha, there is something I wanted to ask you, which we discussed briefly when we met some time ago, which is something to celebrate that UGC has introduced Ayurveda biology in one of its as one of its subjects. Can you elaborate on that? How impactful this effort is?
Yes, I think this really came as a big surprise to us, right? What this means is that people with a professional degree, such as BAMS students, can take this CSIR UGC NET exam and give the Ayurveda biology component. But this has a very special impact on our students, right? Now, competitive exams by their nature are trying to winnow students down based on the amount of information that they have, right?
Mhm.
The number of people who are able to take Ayurveda biology as a subject in UGCC NET exam is right now a very small pool of people, right?
Mhm.
And our students are now belonging to this small pool of students,
Right.
therefore increasing their chances of improving their ranking as well as the scores that they get in this exam. And
Mhm.
what is the outcome from this UGC NET exam? Firstly, if you're in the top percentile, you get a JRF, so you get some stipend and you can pursue a PhD in universities or institutes that accept UGC fellowship, right? Second, you get a stamp that says that you're eligible to be employed in government institutions as an assistant professor, right?
Mhm.
These are all valuable ways in which a student can advance their career in the academic domain, especially in India. And now, suddenly, with Ayurveda biology opening up, our students are more competitive for this
Mhm.
particular exam. So, a very, very good development for the scores and for anybody who's considering Ayurveda biology.
Vishnu, so I mean, what made UGC introduce this subject? Does this mean that Ayurveda biology is being taught elsewhere too? I mean, I forgot to ask you. Is ours the only Ayurveda biology course, or are there more?
Uh, Ours is the only M.Sc Life Science Ayurveda Biology course where the
Mhm.
Ayurveda Biology is in bracket. And as we said in the beginning, our syllabus has a very, what I can say, great orientation towards that CSIR Life Science syllabus. But JNU has a 5-year integrated M.Sc Ayurveda Biology program.
Mhm.
And these are the two universities that is offering M.Sc Ayurveda Biology, but that is the 5-year BSc MSc integrated program,
Mhm.
which is offered in collaboration with, as far as I know, the Life Science Department and the Sanskrit Department.
Mhm.
And recently, the NCISM, National Council for Indian Systems of Medicine, had formally introduced MD Ayurveda Biology. Some of the faculties of TDU, including me, are part of that curriculum. So that is another thing. So probably all this evolution, I would say, from the, as I said, Professor Velithan sir had started the Ayurvedic Biology Task Force to these education programs. Probably that evolution of integrating Ayurveda and biology might have,
Mhm.
uh, 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 made a kind of a change in the UGC so that they introduce this specific stream of Ayurveda biology for their UGC net. In some sense, actually, that is what I can say, certifying our efforts of having this education program. And as Megha said, uh, the first exam was written by many of our students, and if I remember, two students they got the JRM, the top ranking, and three or four students they got the lectureship, and one or two got the PhD eligibility. So that's a very good, what I can say, result for us from our small number of students. Around 50 percentage they cleared this UGC NET exam, the first chance itself. So that's a very great thing, and we consider that as a great achievement in terms of our program.
That's so cool. That means that, if other places in the country want to start Ayurveda biology course, then our students would be very easily absorbed as assistant professors. Of course, they'd have to go and finish a PhD somewhere, but, at least they can start quickly in their career. Okay. Got it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. That's a very important point because it's again like now adding to their employability opportunities.
So this is only 1 year old, right? The UGC net. I mean, they had it last in 24 or
24. Yeah,
24.
that was the first
Right.
exam they had.
So to move on, I know that both of you are also the coordinators of a very important flagship master's program that the university runs. And you have chosen to name it M.Sc Life Sciences, Ayurveda Biology. So I'd like you to begin by talking about this word Ayurveda Biology, because it's kind of unusual. And I mean, it's not just a juxtaposition of these two words, that it means much more. So I'd like you to start. Maybe Vishnu, you can go first, and then Megha can supplement.
Sure, yeah. So there is when we were working here, as I said, we were doing a lot of research in this interface between Ayurveda and biology, and we are excited, and we are finding a lot of what I can say common aspects, but it is explained in different terms. So this is our experience. Now, if I look at this from a very hardcore, biology person trained without any exposure to Ayurveda, what we are always seeing is that we have a tendency to discard everything that is described in the so-called traditional medicines like Ayurveda, for that matter, Ayurveda, Unani, all those things. Perhaps one reason is that we are not able to understand that. And there are many reasons for that. One, of course, the language in which this, science is explained, which is not very common for the whole public. Second, the what we use the word the epistemology, the way how it is, understanding this biological functions, that is also different. So we find that students who are really interested. So, and one more thing I would like to add here. If we want to take science forward, that as a person coming from physics background, you will also appreciate that no science will ever advance if it is thinking only from a limited, viewpoint of understanding the nature. So that is very, very clearly established across the globe. So here we feel that if a student who is really interested in understanding more about the nuances of biology, they have to. Biology itself is a transdisciplinary science because it's a combination of physics, chemistry, mathematics, etc., etc., etc. So if they want to further expand the horizons of biology, we feel that there should be a more and more understanding of the systems aspects of biology. So now, if you want to understand the systems aspects of biology, most of the time, for any such research, we need a tool to ask this questions. And we feel that this sort of tools can be provided by Ayurveda through its, science, whatever that theoretical explanations, as well as the things like formulations or food choices, etc., etc. So we felt that it is very, very essential that every student who is interested in deepening their knowledge in biology or deepening their knowledge in life science should be provided a chance to learn both the aspects of this, science, the molecular understanding as well as the holistic understanding. So for that, one of the best choices what we can have is Ayurveda, because that is one of the most codified systems of traditional medicines in India. So this is why we thought, okay, let us combine this, Ayurveda and biology. So at the same time, you all may be knowing that in India, DST had already, initiated a program which is called as Ayurvedic Biology. That was, started by Professor M.S. sir, and we are all, sort of consider that as a very important step. And we actually inspired from this phrase Ayurvedic biology, and that when we started our education program, we just modified that, we call it as Ayurveda biology.
Mhm.
And the second point is that why it is MSc Life Science. So there are two reasons for that. One, of course, Ayurveda biology is a completely new terminology, and sometime when it is coming to the education system, when we introduce it as Ayurveda biology, it may even become like a jargon, and many people will not understand what is that, because education system has its own what I can say, the experiences and whatever they know, that history, it's always there in that. So, but MSc Life Science, Ayurveda biology is nothing but the study of science of life. So there is nothing new in that. Only difference is that we are seeing this from different perspectives. And so therefore, we thought we'll keep it as MSc Life Science with a specialization in Ayurveda biology. So in that way, the students also will have an advantage, because any education program should offer some job opportunities and things like that. So if there is a completely new terminology like Ayurveda biology that may not fit into the job market for the students, so we felt that if you call it as MSc Life Science with a specialization in Ayurveda biology, that will actually satisfy both our requirement of providing this transdisciplinary thinking to those who are interested in deepening their science knowledge, and also it will help the students to be on par with any other degree holders in this country. So this is the reason why we call it as Ayurveda biology, where we are providing the fundamental knowledge about both the science in the same program. I think that is a very unique attempt, and TDU was really dare to start that kind of a very unique program, because it's not that easy to uh, uh, convince a university to start that kind of a program, I would say.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for that. Megha, what would you like to add to this conversation? From my perspective, I mean, Ayurveda is a huge field, has been around for thousands of years. Modern biology is equally huge. How are you doing justice to both of these? And anything you'd like to add to what Vishnu has already said about this course of yours, MSc Life Sciences, Ayurveda Biology?
I think I'll take a personal viewpoint first, and then see and share how that has evolved. Right.
Yeah.
So 5 years ago, or if somebody had told me I would be an advocate for Ayurveda, I would have laughed in their face,
Okay.
because this is not something that I grew up with. There was a lot of Sanskrit knowledge in my family, but we have not been doctors and physicians. And certainly, my own adventures in science have never been in the direction of traditional knowledge, right?
Mhm.
So I think personally, I felt that if someone like me could enjoy and learn something new simply by having it introduced in a format that was um, very non-confrontational, that was meant as a way to learn together rather than to defend a particular position, I thought it would be very beneficial to have that kind of environment, right?
Mhm.
And I was very lucky because Vishnu and other colleagues had already prepared sort of a template to do this course. So my personal first attempt at the course came from a place of the realization that unless education is provided in a way where both sciences are allowed to mingle freely, disagree, and have a vada, samvada, debate, it would be very silly to dismiss one science or the other, right? And that has evolved now, because in the course, as I have become exposed more and more to both young students coming out of biological sciences as well as Ayurveda graduates, I realize that the the biases are so entrenched that
Mhm.
unless we as educators create not just a place for them to interact, but also design curriculum that is meant to provoke and uh, uh, improve the ability for expression, right?
Mhm.
So, and by that I mean that students have an ability to say that I don't think what your science has to offer us any good, and for
Mhm.
the other student to retort to that in a very respectful manner. I think that is also a task. So I think our course has evolved from that very personal point that we should just give these two sciences education together, to how do we make it a course where we bring out students who for the rest of their life will embrace a perspective which is respectful of different opinions, and the ability to convey whatever you feel is correct in a manner that is logical and respectful.
Yeah, that's wonderful. I think that we have to teach students to have an open mind. I mean, otherwise, like Vishnu said, they'll remain narrow actually. So you refer to something which struck me, that, you have students from Ayurveda background as well as students from biology background coming in. So your eligibility is kind of wide. So first of all, if you could just comment on that eligibility, and how do you hammer this class into into shape, in the sense that, how do you do common courses, how do you do electives and things like that? It'll be nice if you can talk about it. Either one of you can take the question, or both of you can answer. So one of you go first and the other person can add. Yeah. Who would like to go first? Vishnu, you?
Yeah, okay. I'll go with that. Yes, so let me first talk about the eligibility. As a statement, I can say this course can take students who are coming from biology background like B.Sc, biotechnology, microbiology, life science, etc., as well as students with BAMS background, that is the Ayurveda science, and also students from MBBS, B.Pharm,
Wow.
BDS, all sort of. So, in short, if I say any students with any biology background, degree background can join for this program.
Mhm.
So now, first of all, why this kind of mixed population? That's what we generally understand this. There is a reason for that, because what, as I said, it's a life science program. So life science, we are not into that definition of what is life science, etc. But of course, each and every what I can say, like courses like botany, zoology, etc. They have their own framework of discussing their life science and their this thing. But we believe that this all these things has to be integrated. So here, though our course has an enormous emphasis on human health,
Mhm.
we would like to have all these diverse background students to sit and discuss their perspective on each and every topic that we are discussing.
Mhm.
Let it be biochemistry that Megha is teaching, or let it be cell biology that I am teaching, let it be Ayurveda that the other colleagues are teaching. For all these things, there could be a different perspective for a different person.
Mhm.
So to have that, what I can say, I think that is what is transdisciplinarity. We are like,
Mhm.
discussing these things from openly. We are discussing, and that openness is very, very important. So
Mhm.
this is the reason why we kept this open for all this kind of backgrounds. I just would like to add that theoretically, we are interested in actually having students from non-science background as well as maths and all those things. But the only limitation is that the syllabus is in such a way that demands some basic knowledge, because this is a master's course. So at least degree level understanding of biology is very, very essential.
Right.
So that's the only reason. Otherwise, philosophically and theoretically, it has to be open for all sort of knowledge backgrounds. So that's my first point. Now, the second point is very interesting, and probably later Megha also can add how we are, teaching in this kind of a wide, diverse background. It's actually on one side it may be a little challenging, but on the other side it's very, what I can say. uh, very interesting as well, because when we take a particular topic, we see that students who have strong background in that particular area of science that we are discussing, they will have a specific understanding on that. Now, when we try to bring the other perspective, what we are actually seeing is that these students also will get a new understanding of what they already studied in that particular area.
Got it.
And from there onwards, they will also try to explain whatever they understood. Say, for example, if I take a particular cell signaling, what I generally teach, they may not understand the possibility of that signaling to be explained from an Ayurveda Tridosha perspective and things like that. So when we try to integrate and when we are like connecting these dots, there is always a wow moment in all the students. So this is very interesting and very encouraging, but at the same time, it is a bit challenging. So here, what we see is that the teachers also has to put a lot of effort on understanding the different perspectives and connecting this dots. So, but this ecosystem of TDU basically provides that kind of a background and a platform, and it allows that sort of an integration in the classroom. So we feel that these students, when they complete their education, their way of understanding the biological changes is totally different from a person who just studied it from a biotechnology perspective, or microbiology perspective, or even for that matter, BMS or MBBS perspective. This is what is my observation as a teacher for the last 3-4 years in this course.
Yeah. Thank you, Vishnu. Megha, over to you. What would you like to add to this conversation about, the diversity of your class and what that brings to the course, actually?
I'd like to talk about that in terms of the electives that we have, expanding on what Vishnu said in terms of curriculum, right? So while designing a course that has people from different backgrounds has required us to think about what will be the potential employability of such a student. And therefore, our electives are designed around what we see as 3 main ways in which students can get employed: in the industry, in a clinical setup, or in basic sciences, right? And where each one of these courses is meant for a student to translate their background plus whatever they have learned in their course into a particular skill that they want to acquire to join a particular domain. Let me explain this process using an example of a student that we had last year. She's a clinician who was very much interested in communication and in mental health space, right? So in her electives, she chose electives that had to do with writing because she was interested in communication. Now, TDU does not offer a writing course, but TDU allows for students to take Coursera courses that are credited. So she did a writing course with Coursera, and in order to suit our system of assessment, I was a mentor on that course, and we designed some assessments for these students to meet the credit requirements. One of those assessments was an essay, and it was so well written that we decided that we will work on it together, and it is now a published opinion article in the Journal for Ayurveda and Integrative Medicine. And that way, this student's evolution has taken place from being a clinician to taking our course and understanding more about life sciences and applying it in communications in the public health domain, something that she wanted to do. So we see this as laddering up. And I think in one way we are very unique because we are small and we are research oriented, is that we can work individually with students to help them get to wherever they need to be. So we have students who have joined industry, students who have decided that they just want to start their own clinic or join a clinical research effort. or students who have decided that they enjoy fundamental science and are now pursuing PhD abroad, right?
Mhm.
So each one of these is only a potential journey that a student can take, and we are very encouraging for a student to mix and match according to where they want to be. So in that sense, I would say this course is not for those people who are looking for something that is very straight jacketed and just a stamp. This is a course for students who want to be actively involved in their educational journey.
Wonderful. Thank you. So just to make sure that our students get the integrative aspect of what you're doing, I just wanted to ask that, uh, how much do you have, I mean, how much do you actually differ from say a regular life sciences course at another place? How much Ayurveda do you teach, and how much, and what has to be thrown out in order to accommodate that? I mean, are the students losing something, or are they, it seems to me that they are gaining a lot, because when you bring multiple perspectives of thinking, it's like Vishnu said, that you will learn what you already know better, you know but just to clear any doubts that they might have in their mind about whether they are losing something because you are throwing in a few Ayurveda courses, I want you to talk about the curriculum. Both of you can do that. Megha, you can begin if you like. Yeah.
Okay, I think we differ perhaps from a regular life sciences in terms of if you just look at the subjects, right?
Mhm.
By about 30%, 30 to
100%.
25%, right? And this is by design because we want any student who completes this course to have the know-how to take the CSIR UGC NET exam, right?
Mhm.
So we do see that we have tried to make it in line with what other students taking up an MSc Life Sciences can aspire to. So in that sense, I would say students are not losing anything
Mhm.
because the course provides enough information for you to ladder on to the next part of your academic journey, right? And we also are mindful that this is a life sciences course.
Mhm.
And life sciences courses across the country differ greatly based on who the faculty are and what are their strengths.
Mhm.
So, in that sense, this course is, I would say, similar, just that we have tried to bring in we have a different perspective. Now,
Mhm.
for example, I did a course on biochemistry and structural biology at Stony Brook, right?
Mhm.
So that had biochemistry, but it is structural biology angle to it, right? So I would say in this course, we're covering majority of life sciences subjects, but we are taking the angle of Ayurveda to
Mhm.
this. So I
Mhm.
think in terms of curriculum, students should not worry at all about having an sort of an indoctrination and unpreparedness for what lies ahead. This is as good as any other MSc Life Sciences program in terms of curriculum. But the difference, and this is very, very important, is that I believe in our course, the way each one of these subjects is taught is
Mhm.
very different from a regular MSc Life Sciences course.
Mhm.
Our assessments do not require that students learn, volumes of information and then just vomit it out into the exam.
Mhm.
We are constantly devising assessments that involves student talking, presenting, thinking, synthesizing, writing. So any student coming out of our course, might feel that they don't have the know-how to take MCQ type questions. But we are preparing our students for a lifetime of professionalism, not just for the next exam.
Exactly.
So I think our curriculum on paper looks very similar to MSc Life Sciences anywhere, but the execution, any student, like I said, who is invested in their education journey will
Mhm.
deeply enjoy the
Mhm.
experiential nature of the course.
That's wonderfully said. Yeah. Vishnu, would you like to add anything to that?
Yeah, I just want to add one thing, and Megha very well explained that that's the reality. What I wanted to add here is See, if we look at our current academic year, let's say 25, 26, or whatever it is, see, information is there for everybody. We don't need to provide information in terms of, say, for example, whatever is written in the textbook. Students may not require a teacher to go and read and tell whatever. I mean, of course, maybe some 10-20% we may have, because they may not be knowing the fundamental aspect. What they're really looking for is the interpretation of that concept from different perspective, maybe using new research papers, that this, etc. So as Megha said, we are ensuring that these students are learning everything on par with any life science degree holders in this country. But we believe that our students can interpret life science in a different way, in a much more holistic way than probably the other life science graduates can do. So, I think our role is more on interpreting what they are actually seeing in this all sort of textbooks and whatever that they can refer to. So just want to re-emphasize on that point that it's a life science course, and we are aware of what is the life science course that is happening in this country, and we ensure that everything is incorporated in this. But the perspective and the detailing of certain specific aspects may be reduced a bit, so that we can incorporate, or we can introduce the other concepts, so that the student can now take it forward. We don't need to force them to think in a particular perspective. I would like to put it in that, probably.
No, it's wonderful. It warms my heart from the perspective of someone who has worked on the national education policy, and
Yeah.
we want all our students to become, capable of critical thinking, and develop skills that allow them to take their knowledge and build on it for benefit to themselves and to society. You guys seems to be doing a wonderful job. So let's explore a bit about what are some of the interesting projects that your students have worked on. You have graduated a few batches, and I believe you do allow them to do some projects, right? So just give us some one or two examples, both of you, on some of the projects that they've worked on that illustrate their ability to become what y'all are targeting, that they can fit into industry, they can fit into academia and everything quite comfortably, and go out more well-rounded students, which is great, actually. Yeah. One of you go first. Megha, you?
Yeah. So in between us, that's my responsibility to take them through their project. So the first thing I would like to inform our listeners is that, unlike most universities, we give full freedom to our students to decide on the project. So although in typical university or research setups, a student is looked on as, a free pair of hands. Very early on, Vishnu and I decided that that's not how we wanted to run projects in this course, right? And so we have a very slow way in which we introduce the idea of projects to the students, and then we explore with them what they want to do. Now, saying that we give them freedom sounds very nice, but in about 70% of the time, that cannot translate into a project. For example, a student desperately wanted to work on a plant that is found in Uttarakhand, right? And we ran into several hurdles. So the student put in a effort to go, because Uttarakhand was his hometown, and talked to a few people, but we ran into several hurdles. And so we continued to work on a herb, because he was very clear he wanted to work on a herb, but the Uttarakhand herb did not work out, right? But we spent three months together exploring, talking to people, liaising with them. Both Vishnu and I make sure that our entire network is thrown into this effort, right? So that's the second part. Once a student has said that they are interested in a particular project, then we work with the student to figure out what would be the best sort of case scenario in which they can be plugged in. I'll give an example. One student last year wanted to work on how um, Sugandhi dravyas. So dravya is a matter or in some medicine. Sugandhi is a smell, and she wanted to understand how the smell of certain things can help you in dealing with anxiety and stress. Now, all of us are familiar with agarbattis with a wide range of smells on them. Now, how do you study this, right? And one of our faculty, Ashwini, stepped up and she works with the C. elegans system. And she said, you can expose them to volatiles because it is easy to expose C. elegans to volatiles. And this is not something Ashwini studies. She works in the area of neuroscience, but she's not interested in Sugandhi dravyas per se, right? But because the student expressed an interest, she was generous enough to put her in her lab and work with her in terms of these Sugandhi dravyas, right? Another student of ours, like I said, the mental health, she went to an NGO, Sangat, which is one of the best NGOs in this country, which works in mental health, right? And they actually didn't have a system where they host dissertation students. So we worked with them and we told them what's possible, not possible. We're also very clear that it doesn't have to be a hypothesis-driven research only. It can just be an immersion experience, right? So if we had a student who said, I want to do a startup, right? We would find a project that is in a startup. And that can mean that they worked in marketing or they worked in accounts, because that's the experience the student wanted. And it is up to us to creatively figure out how to make that into a project.
Yeah. Okay.
So each student, and again, I'm saying because we have small numbers of students and the entire TDU network is available to us, right? I mean, tomorrow, if one of my students wants to work on the overlap of physics and Ayurveda, I'll come to you and ask you and to reach out to your network to find out where they can work with, right? And this way, we have been able to very individualize every project and to the best of our abilities, put students in situations that they think will help them grow in whatever professional dimension they want to grow in.
Beautiful. Vishnu, would you like to add something? You might want to comment on where some of the students have gone after their degree or continue from where Megha left off. I'll leave it to you.
Yeah, I'll tell about that. And I just wanted to narrate one example that happened last year. Yeah, last year only. After the dissertation, we used to have a kind of an open defense kind of a process where we invite evaluators from outside TDU. So one of the evaluators was a relatively senior person and who has a lot of experience in pharmacology and pharmaceutics, and they are into development of pharmaceutical products, etc. And one of our students, he was a very what I can say, if I give a pipette and startup option, he will always touch the startup option. So he was very much interested in the product development, and he worked with our own colleague Dr. Subramanya, and it was focusing on developing some products and things like that. So during his presentation, he had a packet that had 3-4 prototypes of whatever the product that he made, and that was given to the entire audience, including the evaluators. And then later, the comment from the evaluator when I went to their college was, he was telling to their colleagues that you look at this university. There was a student who did a project for 8 months, and he came up with a prototype which is just 1 or 2 steps away from marketing.
Right.
So this is possible just because of the freedom that the students are getting, and they can freely think. And and one more thing that we always say to add to this, question where they did. At least personally from my side, what I always say that, of course, TDU is doing very interesting, very good work in this area of Ayurveda biology, and we probably one of the leading institutes in that area. But to our students, we always say that this should be the last resort for your dissertation.
Mhm.
Yes, you are our student, so you can very well, approach us. There is absolutely no doubt about that. But this should be the last resort. Why? Because this is the time where you have to explore. We are teaching and we know what we are teaching, and that may be something that is coming from our own research. So only when you go out, you will understand more about what probably we are discussing and what the other ways of understanding what we are discussing. So we encourage the students to go out. And in our first batch, some of the students were working in IGIB, some students were working in maybe Megha can tell the complete details. I don't remember all the institutes, but many of them were working with top biology and Ayurveda biology researchers in this country.
Mhm.
So in that way, again, that is adding to the diversity of our program. Maybe Megha can give the details of places where the students work.
Yes,
Sure.
Megha, go ahead. Tell us a bit about the, where some of your students have gone. I think you're running this course for 4 years now.
Yes.
So 3 batches or 2 batches have passed out?
Yeah, we are in our third batch is finishing up their project.
No. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so IGIB, IIT Jodhpur, NCCS Pune, a startup here in Bangalore, Sangat, of course, which I mentioned, BHU. These
Mhm.
are the places that our students have gone to for dissertation. I want to, I wanted to add one more point. What Vishnu was talking about external evaluation and projects. You see,
Mhm.
um, one aspect of getting our students to go to different places is also to put them in labs that have never thought about doing Ayurveda based research.
Right.
You know,
Right.
both of us have friends, scientist friends, who are keen but they don't know where to start. So it has been a wonderful marriage that we have been able to put students in their lab to work on projects that they are interested in but can use explore a Ayurvedic approach for the first time. And that is another way for us to um, improve the dialogue in India between clinicians, researchers, and traditional medicine, because it is a reality. And I think, unfortunately, we have siloed it so much in education that this bridging activity, has to happen at the peer-to-peer level if we have to change policy.
Mhm. Mhm. Great, thanks. When I was thinking about this podcast, there was one question I wanted to ask you, Megha. I remember in passing you're saying once about an assignment that you gave students to make lemonade with some herbs from our campus. I want you to say that again, first of all for me, but also our listeners, because also it'll bring in the benefits that our campus brings. We've alluded to the fact that TDU has a hospital associated with it and that we work on medicinal plants, but we haven't talked much about our campus. So I want both of you to talk about it, but let's begin with you, Megha. I want that lemonade example again, because I didn't catch it fully the first time. Go ahead.
So this was our first batch, and it was COVID time. We were able to begin the session only 2 months after the semester had started. And Vishnu said, the students, the week they are coming back is World Ayurveda Day. Do you think we should do something for that? It also happened to be the day on which their first lab experience was scheduled, right? So we thought, what better way to start lab and to tell students that all life is experimentation than just telling them, let us do an experiment together where you look for things in this campus and come together with a drink or a beverage using the herbs that are there. And we put them in teams such as the biology students and the Ayurveda students. There was a mixed proportion. And that allowed them to talk to each other. Because remember, these are students who have never met each other, right?
Yeah.
So we put them in teams and we sent them out to forage on our campus and organized a tasting session where they had teas, lots of different types of teas and what are called kashayas in Ayurveda. And these kind of products. This lemonade, that was definitely one of them. It had brahmi in it, if I remember correctly. And then I brought some things from home, sugar, salt, and a bunch of things. I told the students, you tell me what you want and we'll bring it. And we made lab actually an experience. We called people from across the university to come and taste these products. And this was a great way for us to start out telling the students that things are going to be different on this campus.
Right.
Don't come in here thinking that in the lab you're going to wear a white coat. And we have that, wear a white coat to do something in the lab. But don't think that that is all lab is. Every time you see a patient and take down their history, every time you open your fridge, every time you think about a pill, you are a scientist, and you have to learn the art of protocol writing, mixing things together, presenting that information. So this was our first way of doing it, and it was an extremely enjoyable event and tasty.
Do you continue to do it, or it was just once?
We do it in different ways.
Okay.
So this is for, I have to thank Vishnu for making that point, that because of TDU and its ecosystem, there is a lot of freedom to faculty, right?
Mm-hmm.
I know we're doing this podcast for students, but I would also like to say that we would welcome other faculty who want to participate in this very different learning experience, right?
Mm-hmm.
I go into class, and when there are some things I don't know in Ayurveda, I pause and I ask my students, because my students know much more than I would ever know, right? So it's a way for us to learn, and we keep doing different things based on the students. We had a seminar series that we made the students run. And as part of that, the snacks were organized by the students. So that was like an evolution of that particular first practical. These days, in my own lectures, I ask students to pluck certain things and bring them to the class, and then we do a quick experiment with them. So it has evolved. I would say I was very worried as a teacher that I would be very bored teaching the same thing again and again and again. And because of TDU and our the lovely way in which we are allowed to express ourselves, it has not been a boring experience at all.
That's so good to hear. I hope lots of faculty members are listening to you. Vishnu, what would you like to add? Maybe you should say something about our campus and its medicinal plants history, and that will help supplement what Megha has said, that students can go out and pluck something and make something with it, or they can make snacks or whatever. Please go ahead.
I was about to say that, actually. One of our colleague, Dr. Subramanya, he is handling pharmacology and kind of electives related to drug design, etc. And I often see Dr. Subramanya is walking through our campus with our students. Because most of the time my classes are within the classroom, because I use a lot of slides and things like that. But I see that Subramanya is standing below a tree and pointing to the leaf and saying that this is what this and this can be used, etc., etc. And he's most of the time I have found that one day he took one of the seeds and then he cut open that, and inside there was very beautiful drawings and designs, and he was saying, you see, this is why this particular name. So I think what I found was many students are forget about biology students. They might not have exposed to this kind of thing. Even Ayurveda students, I found that they are not really exposed to all these things, because so this actually gives, this is the importance of experiential learning, where you are really getting that practical knowledge by that particular name by showing a design that is present inside the seed or the seedling or cot or wherever it is. And this is possible because of the campus, because the campus has all these medicinal plants that are
Mhm.
that the students can be shown and they can be taught on all these things. And we have very good team of Ayurveda, botany, etc., etc. So this is on one side, and then another example is that the same raw materials. Let me say it that way. The raw materials available in our campus is being used for preparing certain asava, arishta, and all those things in the lab as part of their courses on drug design.
Mhm.
So, so just imagine preparation of an Asava Arishta may take 15, 20 days. So then, the faculty also has to plan that course in such a way that probably the first day they have to do this thing.
Mhm.
And then they have to, wait for wait for almost 1 month so that as they explain all the other, aspects of that particular process, at the end,
Mhm.
the students will come up with, something that they prepared
Right.
and they will understand what is the Arishta. And now the only thing that is missing is the regulatory aspects to put it into the, shop or market or whatever it is. So these are these things are possible because of the campus and the campus ecosystem.
Mhm.
So a lot of advantages because of the curated medicinal plans and all those things. And if I talk about the courses on medicinal plants, we have one of the best medicinal plant herbarium in this country, or maybe in Asia, or maybe globally also. I'm not sure about that. And the raw drug repository. So these are the kind of things which again allow the students to touch, feel, and learn.
Mhm.
So they are actually seeing what is this plan, which otherwise we may have to take them to Himalayas or somewhere to show this. But they can actually see that, they can touch, they can feel, they can understand.
Mhm.
So I think that will actually complete that cycle of learning. I'm seeing this and I know what is the application and I know where it is used in Ayurveda, and now I know the biochemistry, I know the molecular biology. So I mean, that's what the holistic way of
That loop
understanding that
closes. Yeah.
that
Yeah.
loop
You're connecting
closes.
the dots. Yeah.
Yes, we are connecting the dots.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you. I want to close by touching upon something both of you have alluded to, but we have not expanded upon, which is the possibility of doing clinical research in collaboration with our hospital. Okay. So I'd like both of you to talk about it, not necessarily from the course point of view. Of course, I mean, the fact that the hospital is there means that what Megha mentioned, that students can go and talk to patients and things like that. That's also a huge opportunity. But even from the perspective of Ayurveda biology, I want you to talk about how education and research in life sciences is getting enhanced by the fact that we have a hospital that does Ayurveda and integrative medicine associated with us. So, Vishnu, would you like to go first? I'll
Yeah.
give Megha the last word.
Uh, so, clinical research is very, very important, especially when we talk about a system like Ayurveda, because we always use the word Ayurveda is holistic. So, when you say holistic, that holistic system and holistic science can be studied only using that complete system, which is nothing but human. So, on the other side, we need to have the other aspects of understanding the molecular biology and etc. etc. So, in our university ecosystem, the hospital which is associated with our university gave us a lot of opportunities to ask these questions, what exactly is happening when this formulations are given to the patients, and what kind of what I can say that because they will be given multiple formulations in different personalized aspects, and all those things are there. So all this data can be captured and it can be analyzed, and that can be correlated with our basic science research. So that opportunity is very, very important for us in enhancing our research capabilities. So we are all involved in various clinical studies on different aspects, whether it is diabetes, glucose metabolism, or malnutrition, or anemia, or whatever it is. So I think it is very, very important. And maybe Megha can add more on what specific research that Megha is doing on this line.
Thank you, Vishnu. Go ahead, Megha. Wrap it
So,
up for us with clinical research, perspective on Ayurveda biology, anything else that you'd like to say? Yeah.
okay. I would like to talk about the hospital, and then I would actually just specifically like to talk about what students can do after the course.
Mhm.
So, in terms of the hospital, what happens is that this course attracts clinicians as well as biology students. Biology students generally never get clinical exposure. They have no idea what the hospital does and what sort of realities they have to deal with, right? So it's
Mhm.
very easy to stay in a lab and say, I'm going to cure cancer. But
Mhm.
when you sit in a clinic with a doctor and a patient who has cancer, your viewpoint of that as a social reality completely changes, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
And
Mhm.
so your priorities as a scientist also can evolve because of that interaction.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
that's for a BSc student. And there
Mhm.
are innumerable BSc students who are interested in clinical exposure. So we are one of the few courses that allows students to have this sort of immersion peripherally in terms of the clinical practice itself, but more in depth in terms of the curriculum that we
Mhm.
offer, right? Second, in terms of projects, right? So here I will give an example. I had a student, a BAMS doctor, who did her project with me.
Mhm.
And one fear physicians have is that if I do this course, I will not be a doctor anymore, or I cannot practice anymore.
Mhm.
So actually, Vishnu came up with one idea to deal with that, which is that all our students can go and do an exposure in the hospital. So they
Mhm.
can sit in the room with the physician and a patient and observe, right? And this happens on weekends, so it doesn't have to overlap with our course. To build on that, what I told the student is that you can do a project where you have a laboratory component and a clinical component.
Mhm.
And for the clinical component, we did a retrospective analysis. We asked for this herb, mucuna, what is the current day usage? The classical texts mention reproductive health, rasayana, and many other properties. But what are people using it in terms of contemporary medical practice, right?
Mhm.
And so she went to the hospital and she looked at these records from the pharmacy to understand for which condition, which doctor, which formulation containing this particular herb, mucuna, that we were interested in, was being utilized. And what we found is that contemporary biological knowledge that mucuna contains L-dopa and so therefore it is useful in Parkinson's was not at all the practice. In an Ayurvedic setup, mucuna containing drugs were not the first go to drugs for Ayurvedic physicians.
Mhm.
If you talk to an Ayurveda physician, they'll say, yeah, of course, I will not use Kapichu or mucuna, right? But now we had data. And this student now realized as a physician that what she's learning in the classics is substantiated by practical experience, right?
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
and also the cases in which mucuna was being prescribed by the Ayurvedic physician for Parkinson's, what were those outliers and why were they effective, right? So this is the type of translatability that we can see because of the presence of the hospital and ongoing clinical work with the hospital
Mhm.
in terms of strengthening Ayurveda
Mhm.
biology, right?
Biology. Before you go anywhere else, I just wanted a doubt clarified, please. I mean, you mentioned that the student was a physician and was worried that he or she couldn't be a physician anymore.
They had
Why would that be? I mean, this so basically the person who's a physician is probably either an Ayurveda physician or an MBBS.
right.
Why would doing a master's prevent them from being a physician anymore? I'm sorry, I didn't understand. If you could just
So
explain.
the fear is that I am a doctor and I should be practicing. But instead, I'm sitting in this lab and looking down this microscope, and you're hammering concepts, which are completely alien to me, right?
Got it.
Am I ever going to use these concepts?
Got it.
And am I losing valuable time by sitting in this classroom where, and I'm not seeing a patient every day? Because even in our hospital exposure, these are immersions. They are not like doctors prescribing tablets or anything like that, right?
Mhm.
So there is a major fear of loss of skill, right?
Mhm.
Physician skills. So not that they're not doctors, but they're not doing what doctors are supposed to do. Have I said that correctly, Vishnu?
Exactly, because that feeling, uh, uh, see, practice or being a clinician means more and more practice. So that is what is the understanding. But later, what actually happening is when they are understanding this, some of our doctors, of course, our students after completing this, and as well as some of the other doctors who are working with us, they are saying that we are now able to do better practice. What do you mean by better practice? When I asked, because I mean, I was curious to know that because you are already a doctor now. What is that better practice? Because when we offer this course, we have never thought of making them, better in that sense, quote unquote.
Mhm,
They are saying that now we are able to communicate and convince the public
mhm,
about their conditions in a different way,
mhm.
which we were not able to do when we were like no only thinking it from Ayurveda perspective. So
Perspective.
that is what makes them better in terms of their practice.
Mhm,
So this concern was there with all the students, especially those who are like coming from a BMS background. And I think now after one or two batches completed their course, now that is slowly reducing, right, Megha? People are understanding that this is very, very important to have that orientation.
Absolutely. Yeah.
mhm.
Okay.
So, any last words for both of you? I'm sorry, I interrupted you, Megha. So, if you were wanting to say anything else, please go ahead.
I wanted to close by saying that for students, this is an opportunity to do many different types of professions that they may not have imagined before this course. Right?
Mhm,
And I just wanted to end on employability because we recognize that that is a major issue for students. We
mhm,
do, a lot of people think that this course is only for research oriented students, and that myth I would like to dispel.
mhm,
Certainly, research is one of the areas that we see our students going into, but we
mhm.
have students in industry, we have students in NGOs, we have some students who's now going to join a company and work on communication content, right?
Excellent.
So it is not limited at all.
Mhm,
And I would like to encourage students to think about it as a stepping stone in their professional journey rather than a just a degree that gets them to only to do a PhD. uh,
mhm.
this this course is not for students to only do research. You can do many different things with this course and with the TDU ecosystem, and you will have access to networks that typical MSc Life Sciences students do not. I'd like to end with that.
Thank you, Megha. And you, Vishnu, any last words?
Yeah, last point. First of all, if anybody is interested to do something very innovative in their life, especially focusing on life science kind of an area, this could be one option because this provides a lot of opportunity. And one last point I wanted to add, especially for those graduates, professional degree graduates like BAMS, MBBS, etc. As we say, practice is always a concern. So this is a 2-year program, but for those professional degree holders, this course also provides an opportunity to end this after 1 year with a PG diploma in Ayurveda Biology, because that is something that medical degree holders, doctors will always cherish. They have PG diploma in various things. So that is also one advantage, so that they will get the knowledge base, may not be the complete experiential learning, including the project and all those, but at the same time, that can be used in their practice. So that also will open up their mind for embracing the various aspects, so that you are not more in a silo and you can use the good things of everything into their practice, so that that will benefit the public ultimately. So that's what I
Thank
wanted to
you.
tell you.
Thank you both so much. It's wonderful. It's been a fascinating discussion for me, but I think that you have both between you said a lot of wonderful things, which I hope will inspire many more students to come and experiment with the program. And having a 1-year option is also kind of exciting. You try it out, and if you prefer that you want to leave, then you can still go. But you have picked up very valuable transdisciplinary perspectives, which will serve you your entire career, actually. Thank you. Thank you both very much.